Well, hello everyone. I am so glad to be with you this evening. First of all, let me apologize to you because I have been so long ago on social media. I must admit that I am terribly afraid of this videotaping social media thing. And so I need your prayers so that I would be consistent and come to you on a regular basis. So I hope that you forgive me and kind of hang out with me a little bit. I thank you so much for viewing this recording. First of all, I want to ask a question of you. And that question is, do you ever think about how you think and what your mind thinks, the decisions you make and where they come from and how they come? Well, I want to talk about our thoughts. I want to introduce this idea of review to you so that you can consider the way your thoughts are influenced and how the word of God even influences your thought. Do you realize that the very first thing that we do is we have a perception? And what I want to mention about having a perception is that perception makes meaning for us. That is, it's a stimuli that comes through our senses and actually gives us direction on how to think about the thing that we just saw, heard, or felt. And so when we have a particular perception, it then moves us into a perspective, which then influences our behavior. It is how meaning impacts us. So once we get that perception or that stimuli, then we get the motives and the direction on how to behave on a particular thing, on that particular stimuli that came to us. So why am I bringing that up? Because see, the apostle Paul speaks about in Second Corinthians chapter 10 verses 3 through 5. He tells us to take our thoughts captive, and we'll talk further about that in our next time that we come together, what that meaning is. But he talks to us about allowing our flesh not to be the reason that we think the way we think, we act the way we act, and we respond the way we respond. Perspective is very important because it determines how the decisions we make and how we react to others, the way we interact, and so forth. Let me give you a little story that will help make this make sense. When I was very young, I think I was 10 or 11, and I got bit by a dog. My brother and I were playing outside, and I ran across in front of this dog that was pulling away from its owner. I thought I could run in front of the dog and be past him, but in essence, he pulled away. The dog pulled away from its owner, bit me in the leg, and so I was 10 or 11. I want you to remember that. Well, even today, at the age that I am, when I hear a barking dog or when I see a dog pulling from its owner, it creates a thought in my mind about me being afraid of what may happen next. You see, the stimuli is the pulling away dog, the stimuli is the barking dog, but then my behavior is fear. Because I recall from seeing and being affected by that dog so many years ago that I still react as though it happened just yesterday. It then determines how I respond to a barking or pulling away dog. Well, that's just one very simple example on how our thoughts on stimuli, our perception of things, and then our perspective responds in our behavior. When the Apostle Paul speaks of taking every thought captive, in essence, he's saying that because we are governed by the Spirit of God, how does the receiving the Word of God impact the way we think? What do we do with it when we hear it? How do we prepare for it and it transform our behavior? He also says in Romans chapter 12 verse 2 that our minds are to be renewed. And so our the whole thing that I want us to be provoked by today is to just think clearly about what we think about, how we make decisions, how we feel about various things. It comes from our environment, it comes from our senses, our touch, our feel, our eyes, our sight. And although eyes don't necessarily see, it's the light that comes into our eyes, which then gives us impressions in our brain. That then impacts our perception, which ultimately impacts our behavior. And so I'm going to come back to you from Epiphany Leads and let's talk about what the Bible speaks about as it relates to our perspective. That means how we think, the thoughts we think. That means our mind and the power of our mind, and how the Spirit of God and the Word of God can actually influence everything that we do. And the transformation process is to let us become all that we can according to and in alignment with the Word of God. I hope you'll hang out with me. I do promise I'm going to be back and I'm going to talk about this and post a few things. And I do hope it's enriching to you. Have a great evening. This is a matter of perspective coming from 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 3 through 5. This is Dr. Jennifer Meningall, CEO of Epiphany Leads. Hang out with me. Thank you and have a good evening.